Go to it.
All right.
All right.
So today, I'm going to sit and see if I'm still on camera. Am I
Yes.
low? Is
You're
it
low.
just my head?
Yeah,
Is that better?
it's better. Yes,
Is that good?
yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Right there?
Yes.
I
you're
bet
right
that
in
freaked
front of the
everybody out.
blue
That loud right there.
screen. Right in front of the blue screen. You're very shadowed.
Oh, excellent. We can turn off the blue screen because I don't think we need
No,
it
that's
today.
the wrong. That's the right one.
I think
It's
throw
backwards.
Lisa LeBlanc.
It is backwards. I don't know why it's always backwards, but on my screen it's always backwards and then it shows up right. The first one I did, I flipped it so that it looked right on my screen and it was backwards for everybody else. That's why week one's kind of goofy. All right, so last time we went over the review of your business, your annual review and all that sort of thing. And this time, at the end of that, we talked about wanting you to send me some topics, which I was flooded with topics and things. And so those of you in the room, any input on what you'd like to discuss today? Because if not, I've got one. But
You have one?
I have one, but feel free to
What do I do?
suggest.
No, I mean,
Let's hear what it is before we vote on it.
All right. Yes. What's
I
your
didn't say you were
topic?
going to get to vote. Now, come on. What is this, democracy?
Jessica?
Flying my own flag
What
over
do you
here.
want to talk about? I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
That's cruel.
You don't have one?
Right, no, I don't.
Okay. Do you have one?
No.
You want to talk about block time for 5 minutes?
We can talk about block time for 5 minutes, sure.
Yeah, and then we'll check your topic.
Okay. So block time. We did a whole session on block time, right? And scheduling. It was week 2.
Yes.
But one of the things we talked about last week, or last time,
My block.
your block
is
time's a little
longer.
bit less detailed than my block
I
time.
don't have.
I have
your
to modify
responsibilities.
mine actually. We talked about that now that you've been in the business for a while, sort of, you can kind of reflect on some of the topics and things that we've covered and maybe need a little bit different approach or a little bit different angle or conversation about it. So block time. We talked about block time basically back in week 2, but let's talk about block time again. The basic premise is you block out sections of time. You say from 9 to 10 o'clock, I'm going to prospect. And I'm not going to do anything else ever from 9 to 10. And from 10 to 11, I'm going to research properties. And so at the end of, when that clock clicks 10 o'clock, you stop prospecting and you go into researching properties. And from 11 to 12, I'm going to
Take a shower.
take a shower. Hopefully
I'm in my
you've
home
already
office,
done
fine.
that, right? So that works for you, I guess. It's a long shower. But those are the kinds of things that you just gotta. The key to the block time is, so let's say research property. You're researching property, and so you're online, you're digging in, you're researching property. All of a sudden, the clock ticks, and the next thing on your block is that you're supposed to do some follow-up phone calls. Well, you got to stop researching. And sometimes we get caught up in the activity that we're working on, and we're thinking, oh, well, I just need another 20 minutes to do this. Well, the problem is if you spend another 20 minutes doing that, then you'll never get to the follow-up calls. And so the key is the ideal effect of the block schedule, which is very hard to do, but doable, is to, as soon as that clock ticks to the next activity, you got to switch and you got to start doing the next thing. Because even if you're not done with the previous one. Now, a good block schedule has that time repeat, right? And so if you aren't done with that, well, then you come back and you do it the next time that you need to do, you get to work on it. And so you're going to have enough time to do research, or enough time to do follow-up, enough time to do prospecting, enough time to do marketing, enough time to do all of the different things that you might have on your list. Now, the key thing I think of a block schedule is the more specific you can be, the better off you are. So like my block schedule, I kind of have that lump in the afternoon of coaching, interviews, and recruiting. Well, it's not overly effective because, one, those are 3 very different things, right? But that's the only open time in my day that I schedule other stuff. And I know I'm not going to fill it with coaching and interviews. I'd like to. But when it's not full with coaching and interviews, I go to recruiting. And so that's why I, kind of do mine the way that way. And so far it's worked okay, although not as ideally as I would like to. But, it is a work in progress. The problem with the block schedule is that it seems very daunting. And we've got the example here. This is mine, right?
Yes.
So this is the example, right? And it's lots of colors. I like to use colors because it makes it easy to determine when you're moving from one thing to another. But it seems a little daunting to see that as a block schedule. But it's not that bad if you can kind of stay on it and kind of, just work through it. Try to get as close as you can. The more you work towards it, the more you get to follow it, the more you stick with it, the more it hangs in there, kind of a thing. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any questions about block scheduling or scheduling in general? Best times to do different things?
I have two things. One is, and I don't see anywhere in here, and it occurred to me when I was doing my block schedule,
Okay.
that there's a lot of value to be had by spending time every day keeping up with the real estate industry,
Mm-hmm.
period. Tom Ferry,
Brian Buffini,
yes, all those
all
guys.
of the gurus.
Because you're going to get these emails, and you're going to get real estate technology emails,
Mm-hmm.
and that at the end of the day, the way to round your day off at the end is to take 30 minutes or 45 minutes
And read through them.
and actually read them, and then you're current on the industry
Mm-hmm.
and statistics and that sort of thing. So I point that out.
In my schedule, that generally falls under the email section
Yeah.
because as I'm going through my emails, I
They're
get
there.
emails from 100 different sources of
Right.
those sorts of things, including Atlanta Business Chronicle, Atlanta Journal. So as I'm going through my emails, I'm getting
Inland
current
Report.
on not just real estate related news, but local news and stuff too, as to what's going on development wise and all that kind of stuff.
And one of the best
And,
ones I think
skim
is
that kind
Inland.
of stuff. Inman's great. Inman, a good one. That's the other thing is a lot of the Facebook social media stuff, they do a good job of posting those sorts of things. The Huffington Post,
Yes.
the Inman Connect, there's a lot of stuff on there that you can pull off of Facebook. And of course, a lot of these services are subscription services, that you got to pay for to get kind of deeper into the articles. It just depends on how deep you want to be an expert in whatever aspect of the business you're looking at, whether it's commercial forums or residential or investing or whatever. And so, yes, I think that's a good point. And we did a whole list of activities, I think, in week 2 that you should include. And it was pretty extensive, I think. And you want to definitely make sure that you cover everything. But much like your business plan, your block schedule is a living document. My schedule changed effective this morning that my kids' soccer practice is now twice a week instead of the once a week thing that I was doing during the summer. And so I have to go pick them up twice a week. So now I have to shuffle my schedule around in those days and that afternoons.
And school started, right?
School didn't start for me for another 3 weeks.
Really?
Just a little
No,
crazy.
Atlanta's Wednesday.
A lot of places started today.
Day.
So
Next Monday is.
definitely a lot
Okay.
of different schedules out there. So
Tough getting around town.
not quite yet, but yeah.
Yeah.
Next week it'll
Next
start
week
crazy.
will be.
I think everybody's on vacation this last week and this
Oh, yeah.
week. I mean, it's been really light, so which is interesting. All right, so let's talk about, is that good on schedules? You're covered,
That's great.
100%?
Yeah. I mean, I just like
110%?
to get,
Will's about 80%, but that's pretty good for him.
he's always 80%.
What does it say? Pick up.
There's a note we
You just
passed
got a
around.
big target. You always have
We passed around. All right, any other topics you want to talk about today
Yours.
besides mine?
Okay. So, real estate photography.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so would you pass that cost on to your seller, or is that a cost you concur as far as?
I would
something
consider that a
you
cost you
offer?
incur, yes.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, that would be the way I would approach it. I would take it that you're going to get it paid back when you sell the property.
Right, right. Okay, that's it.
And I would use as professional as you can get. That's my approach.
Okay.
Not your.
Not your cell phone.
No, I was already,
No?
I
No.
already got schooled on that.
No.
The key is professional photography, because even the best of us are still amateurs unless we do it for a living, which there are a couple people in the office that qualify for that, that do actually get paid to take pictures.
Well, you don't get paid, but you were really good when you were in the field.
I was,
Yes.
but I will tell you, I was really good as a photographer in the field because I am an amateur, pretty good amateur photographer. I've been doing photography since I was in high school, which was a long time ago. Not as long as so. Yes. And so I thought my pictures were really good. And then I switched over to using professional, and my properties looked 1,000% better. Now, there are professionals that you won't have that experience with. Just because you pay somebody does not make them good. So, you gotta ask around, you gotta look around, you gotta look at the ones you see online, and see what their pictures look like. And you gotta decide what your style is. I remember used to know an agent who took his own photography. Now, he was an amateur, but he would spend hours taking pictures of his listings. And he would bring backlighting and all kinds of equipment and stuff to really make the shot the way he wanted it, which I thought was great. Now, from a style standpoint, he loves the warm picture. You know what I mean by that?
Mhm.
The kind of yellow hue.
Right.
See,
I'm a bigger fan of the kind of cooler picture where it's actually a little bit more color correct. But from his standpoint, he liked the warm style because he felt like it felt inviting and cozy and comfortable and that sort of thing. And I don't disagree, that's probably true. And so you have to determine what your style is too in your photography and what you want your listings to look like, because that's going to help you decide on who you're going to use, because different photographers do different things and have different approaches. I'm a huge fan of the night shot on cool looking houses and properties.
You are?
Yeah, I love the night shot. I love including the off-season type pictures, trying to get owners to, do you have any pictures, when it snowed? Do you have any pictures, those sorts of things? Because sometimes those pictures can really bring out a different aspect of the property. And you have to think about it. Architects spend $3,000-4,000 getting photography done on an architectural project. If we crest over 150, people start freaking out. Agents are like, oh, I don't want to pay more than $150 for pictures. Well, how about we use a professional? And it might be more than that. Now, there are a lot of professional photographers out there that'll do it in the 100 to 150 range, or less. But think about it. How much time are they actually going to put in it? If, are they going to spend more than an hour at the property? Are they going to ensure that the angles they get are the right angles? In a lot of the most current things, so we'll go off on a photography rant for a minute. The most current technology that you want to try to employ in your photography is called HDR. And the key to that is bright window looks like just a white spot in your average. There's two options. The bright window can look like a bright white spot in your picture where you can see inside the room, or you can see outside the window and the room looks like dark. But if you use HDR, you can actually get both. So you can see what's outside the window and what's inside the room, and it eliminates all the shadows and everything. It really it produces a really good image that is good for marketing.
Is that
It's
a
not
result
really a
of digital?
real image. And what they do is they photograph you at f-stop 1 all the way through f-stop whatever, you know, and they do a range, you know, obviously it depends on how bright it is and all that kind of stuff. But they basically do a range of maybe 5 or 6 pictures, give or take.
Okay.
And then they take the data, they have a program that takes the data from those 6 pictures and compiles it all together and overlays all the good data elements from everything. So your dark spots in one that are lighter in another, they'll bring the lighter section. They'll bring the light, the visible section from the window. They'll bring the visible section from the mirror. They'll bring all of that stuff in, and it looks, you can see everything. Now, you know, it's more like what the human eye sees because we can adjust relatively quickly, you know, to being able to look out a window and seeing what's out the window instead of it just being this bright glare. And so it's pretty effective. It is a little expensive. It adds to your cost, of course, because as you can imagine, you know, one, for every picture that you want that needs that, they have to take 6 pictures. Okay, so that's a manual process, and then they have to import it into the software and use the software and tweak it and use their skill to make sure that it looks good and not just hokey. And so, you know, there's some element to that takes a little bit, but, you know, what I always say is the way you present your listings is a reflection on the level of service that you provide for your client. And so when you go in to get the next listing, if you were to take out your computer and show people the way you had this last listing presented online, would they think it was nice? Would it impress them? And if it doesn't, then maybe you need to try again.
Is there any minor correlation between the listing price and the amount you spend on the photography?
There are photographers, it's usually more based on the size of the property.
I'm thinking if you choose a photographer, you know, you got this photographer will do it for $250 and this one wants $1,000, and the quality of the pictures are decidedly different.
Sure.
You may only want to spend the $250 on the $100,000 listing, but if you get up to the $700,000, you may say, hey, it's worth the $2,000.
And so in this industry, kind of the norm is the average agent, which no one wants to be average, but the average agent will only pay for professional photography at a certain threshold. Okay. Now, my comment is always the level of service that I provide someone that's selling a $250,000 house and the level of service that I provide to someone that's selling a $2.5 million house is going to be exactly the same. And so because of that, I'm going to provide the same caliber of photography to both properties. Now, that may hurt me on the 250 house because it's going to eat up more of my commission, since we just discussed you're going to eat it, right?
Right.
But in the long run, I can show consistency of professional, same standard of service. To me, that's my decision. But again, remember, last time we talked about, you're an independent contractor, you're running your own business, you're the boss, you got to decide. You got to decide, and you should. Maybe you do have a policy that says, okay, so in my world, I've got 2 photographers. I've got super killer crazy photographer that cost me $1,000, and I've got, you know, good professional photographer that cost me $300. So I'm only going to use the $300 one on 300,000 and below, and 300,000 and above, 301, I'm going to use the $1,000 guy. You know, and so you got to decide what is your implication, and that goes back to your business plan, right? See how these things all tie together? That goes back to your business plan. In your business plan, you got to say, okay, I want to make this much money. Well, okay, so if you're spending $1,000 per listing, that impacts how many you got to sell, right? So we're going to take that into consideration. But if you're spending $1,000 a listing, which very few people do, just to clarify, if you're spending that, does that give you the opportunity to get more listings that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And you've got to decide, what is your target market? You know, there are some markets that would respond to that. Around where you live, I would assume would respond well to that.
Mhm. Well, the other thing too with photography is you got to think about video as well. And, you know, the same vendor and you talk.
And that's a lot of times there are good vendors that can do both. They can do the video and the photography. There are some vendors that are really good at video but not great at photography, and vice versa. So, you know, you got to decide again. You got to do some experimentation and talk to some people and whatever to try and figure out what's going to work best for you. There is also the new Matterport stuff that you can get through House something. I don't remember the name of them. I can go look them up. But they're one of our photography vendors is doing House. What is it called? I don't know. But Matterport, which is the 3D floor plan, fully cool walkthrough.
He was at a sales meeting.
And
I think.
no, Matterport hadn't. She was here a while back before they did Matterport, but now they're doing Matterport.
But there was a guy here at one of our sales meetings this year
That did video.
that did
Oh yeah,
still
the
and video,
OBO.
and then they had, because
They have the interactive
Atlantis,
floor plan and stuff too.
yeah, if you wanted it, and because Atlanta's such a movie capital
Yep.
now,
Mhm.
they take the trucks when they're not using them for movies, and they've got the
The lifts.
lifts,
Yeah,
and
cherry
they,
pickers.
because we can't use drones yet. Thank you, FAA. Thank you, government.
Well, there was
And
a
they
drones
put
have
the-
to be some-
And they put that up there and get that. And I thought the price was really reasonable. It was like $295 for all.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing is there's lots of, and the other thing you got to take into consideration is if you're shooting a 2-bedroom condo versus a 5-bedroom house, single family on a 5-acre estate, you know, like if you look at some of the stuff Chris shoots, you know, he's way out in the hinterlands. And
Good dirt.
that's a good word, right?
Where Vespa works.
And, no, he's further out.
Further out than Alvarado.
Yeah.
Good dirt.
Yes.
He's out in the good dirt area.
And so a lot of times, like he's just relisting a property that's got, I think, 20 acres or something,
Mhm.
you know, and so to be able to show that and to be able to express to people what this looks like is a different experience than shooting a 2-bedroom condo, you know. And so, you know, and the key is, and you also have to look at the, you know, JP shot his, but he used a really short lens, and so it makes everything look really big, which is good because you can see everything. But the comments that he was getting from some people are, "Wow, this is smaller than I thought it was going to be."
You
Well, I
always
mean,
get those comments.
That's okay because remember, what's the purpose of the photography?
Put as much.
To show as much of the property as possible, and to do what? What are we trying to accomplish with the photography? What's the goal? This is important. Seriously,
Well, we all fail.
no gold stars today. The purpose of the photography is to get somebody to want to see it in person. Okay? I believe wholeheartedly, and there are photographers that disagree with this, but if there's a beat up old pickup truck in the backyard that's weeds growing around it, you should show that online. Why?
Could be aesthetic.
If there's a power line coming across the back, you should show that online.
Because they're going to see
No
it.
surprise.
Because the key is you want the people that come, no surprises. You
No
want the
surprises,
people
that's right.
that come to see it in person to know what they're coming to see. It's one thing that they expected the rooms to be a little bigger because they didn't quite understand the perspective of the picture. Whatever, that's pretty minor. It's a totally different thing if they show up to the house and they drive up front and there's a water tower in the backyard, but you didn't bother to show that in any of the pictures, or you cropped it out, or you photoshopped it, or whatever, right? Which I'm a big fan of photoshopping pictures, to do things like make the grass look greener or whatever. Because again, we're trying to show this is what this property is. It's that off season. Okay, it might be the dead of winter, but here's a picture of what this house looks like in the spring, because look at the azaleas across the front. And look at the, like that's one of those things that honestly, if you are farming a neighborhood and you can get your hands on a good camera in the height of spring and you're driving around that neighborhood and there's some beautiful looking properties, take pictures of them and file them away for future use.
I'll give you a perfect example of what you're talking about. I had an open house yesterday in Dunwoody, I'll peel it. And on the table in the front door, there were a bunch of brochures of the house. And on the right side of the house, was a lot of trees. There was one brochure where the trees were circled, and there was a note that said, these trees were taken down 6 weeks ago due to power line improvements and that sort of thing. And you walk out and you look, and those trees
And sure
are
enough,
not
they're
there.
gone.
But
But they can grow back.
they can grow back.
Right.
You don't
But-
have to live long enough.
But
Hey,
they,
well, put cypresses in.
so they, actually said,
I had the same exact thing in my neighborhood. The gas line came through and took down this one guy, a real estate agent actually, owned this house that was on like adjacent to the right of way, which was actually the corner. There was a street that ran along it. And he had these huge cypress, just covered the whole back of the house. You could never see the back of the house. I didn't even know he had a pool back there. Till the gas line came along and took them all down. We're like, whoa, you can see the whole back of that house now.
oops.
But, the new owners, they bought the house and they planted some cypresses there. And, that was a once every 50 years or whatever experience where the gas line is going to come through and have to dig up to put the new pipe in. And so, it'll be fine. And, give it a couple more years and they'll be tall enough that it's relatively private.
I think, I'm gonna get this wrong. I think the name of the firm is Plantronics, which does the floor plan.
They do floor plans, yes.
Plus pictures, right?
Yes.
Do you find there's value added with the floor plan?
I love a floor plan. Like if you think about, you go to buy a house and you go online and you start looking at houses. If you've got a floor plan, now the Matterport one is cool as all because it's truly a 3D like rendered floor plan. Like you can see all 3 floors and you can see what the rooms look like. Like it's really cool looking. But the Plantronics one is good too because it also is an interactive one in that they come out and they'll measure and draw up the floor plan and then take photography and they put little cameras on the floor plan and you just click on the camera and you can see the view of that picture, of that room, the view of that picture, the picture of that room. And so that's a great thing. I think floor plans are phenomenal. It's a key piece that could, again, set you apart from everyone else out there because very few people do it. If an owner has a floor plan, if they bought it as a new construction and they happen to have the floor plan, then you might get to see a floor plan. If it is a new construction, you might get to see a floor plan. But for most houses, you don't get to see a floor plan. And so getting to see a floor plan and understanding, oh, look, this is the layout of the house, is just one step closer to knowing exactly what you're going to look at.
It also gives the buyer the ability to say, this is where the grand piano is going to go. That's
Yeah.
So
And
while
then
the photographs
to go on that streak, you also use services like Obio that have the ability to fake furniture. So, we talk about staging and that sort of thing. So let's go on that tangent for a second. You have a vacant house. Say you've got a $500,000 house, a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath, huge house, full basement, empty from roof to basement, completely empty. Is that better than a house that has furniture in it? As far as sellability? Well, it depends on what the furniture is, right? But have you ever gone to a new construction and the model is completely empty, or does it have furniture in it?
Always furniture.
Always furniture, right? It's always decked out and staged. It's very neutral. It's very inviting. It's typically, depending on the neighborhood, it's either staged with just the living areas and maybe the master suite. If they really go overboard, they'll stage everything. But think of the cost to stage a property. You have to find somebody that has all this furniture sitting around that's going to fit in the style that you want the house to look, that's neutral enough or whatever fits in the style. And then you're going to pay somebody to rent that furniture for 30 days or whatever to be able to sell the house. With OBO, they can take a picture of an empty room, and you can scroll through on their website and pick out, okay, this is kind of modern looking furniture, I want that. I want to put a grand piano in the corner over here. I want to do this, that, or the other. And they will render it. It's not like the old school cut and paste where the shadows are different and it looks really fake. They literally render the imagery in there so that the lighting is correct and all that sort of thing. And it looks real. And then you can take that picture and blow it up onto however big you want to get Kinko's or whoever to print it, and put it on a easel at the edge of the room. And as people are actually physically walking through the house, they can remind them, this is what this room looks like with furniture. And so to me, that's a more cost-effective way of staging than actually staging, because it's about, I don't remember what the cost is, but it seemed reasonable at the time.
Question for you on staging. Half staging.
Like just a living room.
Well, no. People have already bought a house, they moved out, they're selling this house, and non-essential furniture gets left behind.
Okay. Getting a
What do you think?
stager or someone that can do a little decorating to come and
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, you might not have every bedroom with a bed in it,
No, which is fine.
but
And ultimately, I personally don't think bedrooms, unless they're so small feeling that you're not sure real beds are going to fit in them, then you need to put a bed in it and show that it'll fit. But for the most part, the biggest thing you want to stage is their first impression.
right, when they walk in.
So when they walk in the door and they see the living room and the dining room, that's the areas that you want to stage, because that's their living space. That's their impression. They can, most people can relatively comfortably visualize what bedroom's going to look like. And bedrooms are so specific to who they are. Anyone that has kids knows that every kid's room is going to look totally different. And so, it doesn't matter. But yes, using the client's existing furniture, whether they're there or not. So that brings you kind of the next level of, if you have a client that actually inhabits the house, is it valuable to have a stager come in and advise on staging the property using the furniture or removing some of the furniture that is existing and that's there? And that can make a huge difference.
Oh, shouldn't we do that ourselves?
Well, it
depends on your skill level. So there are some agents that are perfectly capable of
Depends on your
doing the staging.
aesthetic ability.
Correct. And there are some agents that are not capable of doing it at all. And so if you're the agent that's not capable of doing it at all, then you should have a stager that you can call on. And most stagers, to do something like that, a consultation is relatively
Minimal.
cost effective.
Yeah.
You're talking couple $100. You're not talking a ton of money, because they're not going to actually do it necessarily. They're going to come in and say, you should do this, 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 and this.
But that's going to be higher end homes too.
but it also
Maybe.
Smaller homes are
Smaller is,
it also gives
again,
you
same
the
thing though.
ability to put the blame, I use the term loosely,
someone
somebody
else.
else as opposed
Right.
to you, as opposed to you going in and say, you got to get rid of all this crap because it clutters up the place. Now you can say, but this professional said, so you're not the bad guy anymore.
And so sometimes that also depends on your style as an agent. My style as an agent was very aggressive and direct. And I went during the listing presentation, I said, okay, I love your wall of, your wall of fame for your family, take it down. And they look at you like, what? I'm sorry, but you're not going to live here anymore. And the people that are coming to look at your house aren't a part of your family. They've already seen your house. So take a picture of the wall and take all the pictures off, patch the holes, paint it, whatever it needs. Let's move on. And so it depends on your style as an agent. And definitely depending on the style of the client that you're working with, you may or may not want to choose that as one of your points of argument. And so you might need reinforcements. You might need someone to come in and help. You'll notice in this office sometimes there are caravans, and the caravan agents will say, you know, we're really feeling like we're getting a lot of feedback. What do you think about the mural in the other room? You know, or whatever. That's a pretty extreme example, but let's pretend. And they're looking for feedback that they can use to go back to their seller and say, look, we had a whole bunch of other agents came in. They think the mural is a detractant from the value of the house. We need to paint over it. You know, that sort of thing. And so, again, it's the support or shift of blame, depending on how you look at it, as to what needs to be done. But again, you want to make sure, so you might be good at staging, but a professional stager might be great. And so is it worth the $100 or $200 or whatever for you to provide that as a service to your clients? Now, that is actually a cost that does get passed along to the client sometimes, whether it's the stager coming in and just doing a consultation or actually staging. Obviously, if the stager is going to come in and bring furniture and stage an empty house, you're not going to foot the bill for that. Okay, the seller is. And so, you know, that's a decision that you can go through with them on that. But that was a good divergence in our conversation.
There was one stager that should not have staged a house. I don't know what the stager was.
Well, I have.
Well, there are, again, just like photographers, there are stagers that are
There was
good and not good, and there are stagers that
was so out of proportion to the room, it was pathetic.
Yeah. Well, and then there are also stagers that kind of accompany your style, and there are stagers that don't accompany your style. You know, if you think about it, there are ones that are totally not in line with what you would do and what your expectations would be. I tend to lean more towards the minimalistic staging. Less is more, because you want to show that furniture can fit, but you don't want to fit every piece of furniture in the world in there to try and prove that.
I would agree.
You want to show that, oh, look, this is a nice, good-sized couch, and there's still plenty of room to walk around it, as opposed to, oh, look, I can fit this 30-foot couch, and I can't get around it, but wow, a 30-foot couch fits. What?
What?
You know, like,
I would agree totally with less is more.
Yeah.
On stage.
Yes.
so.
You want to let them know sofa fits here.
Right. And sometimes some spaces need staging so that buyers can understand the space.
Exactly.
In the open floor plan world of real estate, it can get kind of awkward to understand. So I see this big fireplace over there, and there's like 30 feet that way and another 20 feet that way, and then the kitchen is over here.
Right.
What do I do with all that? How's that going to work? How's that going to flow? And once you have furniture in it, it flows beautifully and it's gorgeous. But you know, trying to understand that can be somewhat of a trick.
People don't have the visual sense to be able to make.
Right, and that's where
Right.
that's
Very
why
difficult.
staging works.
Right.
Because people can't see. It's the same reason why you can say we're going to have a paint allowance and a carpet allowance, but if you actually paint and put carpet in, it'll make you more money, because buyers can't see what it would look like
Right.
with a fresh coat of paint. Oh, it's funky colors. Oh dear.
Yeah, they can't get past.
Okay, that's a can of paint. Like, it's a couple $100. Whatever. Done. Like, you know, not a big deal. But you get the seller to actually paint it a nice neutral tan color.
There was something on the TV this morning that said white isn't good, adds value to a house,
Is it?
as opposed to, say, a bright colored room. Like,
Oh,
they used the example of this person, the house had a burgundy living room, and I said that no, paint it white. It'll add value to the house, because people will say, I want a paint allowance because I don't like the red.
Right. Well, and that's my comment to that is I would go with neutral.
yes.
So a tan, cream, off-white tends to be a good choice, because it goes with everything. And then your decor is what causes the color and everything to bring in. And it's pretty easy to paint over a neutral color like that. A dark burgundy is going to take like 2 coats of primer and I mean, if you want to go from a dark burgundy to a bright white,
Yeah.
forget about it. You know, you're going to end up with pink the first couple of coats. You know, it's going to be
Yellow is the worst.
yellow is horrible to try and paint. You know, and so,
Terrible color for a house.
but it can make a room really bright if that's what you like, you know, and so
Depending on the yellow.
the key is that try to go neutral, try to go the off whites. I don't particularly like white walls. I do like white ceilings, but I don't necessarily
I
like
like
white
neutral.
walls. I like the
Like
slightly
these walls
off
here
white.
are
Yeah, I
neutral.
mean, this is just a nice
Neutral
kind of
color.
light tan, whatever. And if you paint a house this, it makes it,
I don't know who painted
Nice.
that blue, but you know,
Yeah.
okay,
I mean,
we'll let
yeah,
it go.
it's my accent color. And if we were to try to sell it, I would probably paint over that. So that actually kind of runs us through most of today, because my topic would take a lot longer than like 10 minutes or so.
What was your topic?
My topic was motivation.
Oh, we can look forward to
And
that.
so we can do that not
Yeah.
next week, because next week I will be in San Diego.
Jen,
No, at the President's Council.
well, excuse
And
me.
Gem Blue's not till September. So you still have time
That's
to
right.
get your ticket and go.
$89, $99?
$88 round trip, baby. Nothing better than that.
Nothing
I mean,
like sitting in the cargo hold.
I don't care. You know, if I get there, it's not a big deal.
Obviously, there's
Carry-
wolves to the northeast.
Carrying on my luggage
Well,
and calling
thank
it
you
good.
for doing this today.
Yeah, no, very good class. You know, again, if you have other topics, I think as we get towards the end of these, we're going to need to do more
More
of
open.
these kind of just open conversation, because we've kind of run through
The big
the
contracts
basics,
and
the topics and things.
promotions. and all that.
And so we just need to kind of go through a little more advanced dive stuff to try and get us where we need to be.
Okay.
All good?
All good.
Awesome. Very
Okay.
good. I'm going to shut this down and
Shut
then
it down.
we'll go from there. Very cool. Thank
I'm
you
gonna
guys for
give you this
coming.
card here.